Hello, everyone. It is indeed a great honor and pleasure to the host, our guest today, who is actually very well known globally. But I'll go back to my own medical student days. My wife, at present, those days, a young medical student studying in Adelaide, introduced me to a book called Talley O'Connor. I was studying in Sri Lanka at that time, and we were sort of brainwashed to use books coming from UK, being sort of a colony of UK a long time back. I was sort of a bit ambivalent to get to know this new book, but it really was a mind-blowing book. And since then, my love to that book never faded away, and I seems to buy every edition that is coming on the way. And I still keep the old edition also. And interestingly, my son, who is studying medicine at second year, now using the old edition as well as the new edition, just with the same sort of a love that I had and my wife had now for the next generation also. So this is one of the key culprits behind that book. So the Professor Talley, or Nicholas Talley, or laureate Professor Nicholas Talley, is very well known, and book is world famous now, and it is all history now. Professor Talley has many accolades and many awards that I'm not going to bore you to death. You could Google him and find out what he had been up to. Professor Talley, thank you so much for giving us your busy time to support us with the 8th World Brain Day campaign, which we are going to highlight several people globally. And I was very keen to have your story out there. Very good morning to you.
Well, very good morning, and thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thanks for the very kind words as well.
Nick, tell us how you were made to this world. How did Professor Nicholas Talley come about? So take us back to your high school days or primary school days. What inspired you to do medicine? Why, gastroenterology? And why did you choose a very hard area to crack as your PhD, and then later on you made history afterwards? But let's hear from the horse mouth, from your early days, formative days first.
Well, that's very kind. Look, I was born in Perth. My father is a physician. My mother was a nurse. So I come from a family background of medicine, and I guess that certainly had some influence on me. We moved to Sydney when I was 6 months old, and then when I was in school, early on, I wasn't very good in school, actually, early on. I was very interested in other things like sport and, non-academic, non-intellectual activities. But I had lots of fun. And then when I was about 10, we went to the United States for a short period, to Chicago, actually. In the dead of winter, we arrived in Chicago, and my father was there for a fellowship for 6 months. And there I went to an American school, and I was inspired by the teachers in that school. It was a little, public school. And when I came back, I said to myself, I want to be a learner. I want to be someone who really excels. And I worked very hard and through school. And then I decided when I was about 16, I would like to do medicine. And I guess the reason was I was interested in science, really interested in science, but I also love people, and I wanted to explore a profession that would allow me to marry science with caring for people. And of course, medicine was an obvious choice. So I went to medical school, and after that, I ended up where I am today. I guess becoming a gastroenterologist was the most difficult decision. My father's a gastroenterologist. His name is also Nicholas Talley. I realized the moment I decided I would do gastroenterology, which I happened to fall in love with, if I did that, everyone would confuse us for the rest of my career. And that's exactly what's happened. And there's nothing I could do about that. But I fell in love with gastroenterology while I was training. I was brought together with a mentor, Professor Douglas Piper at Royal North Shore Hospital, who was looking for someone to do research. Ended up doing research with him and his team. And after that, I continue that research journey to this day.
I like to make sort of a quote that my grandfather said. He was a farmer in rural Sri Lanka, and I remember him telling me that it is what we put out of our mouth and it is what we put into our mouth made our life miserable. So you need to be very careful what is coming out of your mouth and what is going in. That gives a segue to your research area, and you spend the rest of your life on gut biology and telling the world the impact of that in the whole body, including brain, of course. And we are now very much aware the gut microbiome and neurodegenerative disorders and brain health also. That's from my end. So tell us about how you come about this area to research on, and then accumulating well over $10 million of research support and multitude of PhD students and making global leaders worldwide through your mentorship.
So yeah, look, my PhD was a PhD on what are called now functional GI disorders, functional gut disorders, although in fact these disorders are really organic gut disorders based on the work we've been doing in recent years. But that's where I started our work, and that led me into microbiology, Helicobacter pylori initially when it was discovered or rediscovered, and work in that area, and then later on work in the microbiome. But I guess for me, the most interesting part of this has been recognizing that the gut influences the brain, that there's a two-way connection, trying to understand what that connection is or connections are, what drives those communications. And we now know inflammation in the gut is one of the drivers. The microbiome, changes in the microbiome, also critically important in that two-way communication. And what's more, as you said, the gut-brain interactions really are likely highly relevant to a number of what are called neurodegenerative diseases and other problems, including perhaps psychiatric diseases. For example, we've been doing a lot of work in anxiety and sleep disorders and gut dysfunction, gut inflammation, gut bacteria. So it's a very exciting time to be in gut research, and it really fits my interests of the holistic approach to caring for people and to understanding disease. It's not about one little area. Often it's about the entire person. And I find that particularly exciting and intriguing.
Do you think, Nick, over the years, we medical folks in particular have become a bunch of people who are clever and smart, but basically driven through written guidelines rather than cross-questioning or asking why this is happening in this way, or forgetting the disease mechanisms? I'm talking about clinicians at large, or am I being paranoid here?
No, I think it's fair to say that many of us get, there's two issues. One is you can practice medicine in ways that are innovative and different, but you've got to be, cognizant that in fact, you've still got to be within current guidelines in a general sense. I do worry sometimes that people slavishly follow guidelines that perhaps don't apply to their particular patient who's in front of them, who doesn't fit the guidelines, and that is something we often see. And I certainly believe you need to think outside the box as a clinician and as a researcher. I've always believed you should question everything. I don't believe any dogma, virtually none. I want to be convinced the dogma's right before I will believe it. Doesn't mean I won't follow the guidance, for example, while it's appropriate. But if we then find out that, in fact, the dogma's wrong, and there's a number of examples I can think of where that's the case, then clearly you need to move and not get stuck with the dogma holding you back. And the best example was the Helicobacter pylori story, of course, where the dogma was so strong that most of the senior leaders in the field really had trouble, recognizing that their dogma was probably incorrect. And in fact, they needed to move and change their thinking. That was fascinating. For a younger person, I was younger at the time, I found it very easy to think, well, actually, that makes a lot of sense, and there's data to support it, and I'm gonna follow that lead as well. And so I think it's interesting, and certainly as an older academic now, I still try to think the same way, and really question whether our thinking is right. And if I don't think it is, I'll try to follow the leads that take us in a new direction if I can.
I think I totally agree. I think the COVID-19 pandemic that we both not particularly enjoy very much, not being able to travel and not being able to meet people face to face, and rest of the other issues with not being able to see patients face to face as we would like to, with all the restrictions and lockdowns and whatnot. But one silver lining out of this dark cloud is the rapid learning that we all had to learn, how much we are interconnected in various specialties. And as you just said, when inflammation happening in gut, when those cytokines get released into the bloodstream, they are going to go to the brain, they are going to go to the heart, they are going to go to the kidneys. And despite our subspecialization and super specialization, the system is very much interconnected. I think you have written about this for a long period of time, the importance of systems science approach or systems biology approach to healthcare, and of course keep questioning. Do you agree with what I said?
Yes, I do. I think it's really important to think outside your specialty and to recognize that while specialty medicine training is because of the complexity of the disease processes that we have to deal with, and it simplifies it, if you like, in a sense, to allow us to better manage some of these diseases. What one also can fail to recognize the rest of the body that's affected or relevant to these diseases, and I think that's clear in gastrointestinal specialty, like every other. So I completely agree with you, and again, I've always felt that if you have a disease process and it's more than one part of the body affected, your understanding of that disease, your pathophysiological models that you're trying to work through as explaining that disease, they need to account for every manifestation, not just the ones in your particular area of interest. For a number of the gut disorders, which are clearly systemic disorders, not localized necessarily in all cases, that has not always been the way people have been thinking. Certainly the way we think, I think, my group thinks, but it hasn't been the traditional way. But it's the only way to really make breakthroughs, in my view.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if our viewers are still not convinced, I would invite them to just have a look at the plethora of publications that come around since the pandemic. And when you go through them, the good papers would always remind you how much we are interconnected and the importance of whole system approach. Nick, that gives me the segue to the move to the next topic. As you are probably aware, we are now in the middle of the 8th World Brain Day campaign. I'll sort of share a little bit of history behind this. About 10 years ago, a few of us at an international conference, I was a sort of fairly junior consultant at that time, we were talking about the importance of awareness and advocacy around brain health. The idea being, we both know that health is defined as a complete physical, social, and psychological well-being, not the mere absence of disease or infirmity, as per World Health Organization in 1948. Although World Health Organization didn't put brain as a key component in it, just as gut, while every system is interconnected, there's absolutely no health without brain health. You need to have a well-functioning brain to basically maintain whatever the health that you could maintain. We were appalled by the lack of awareness globally. So that was the idea. And then the Global Neurology Associations endorsed that and voted our proposal in favor, which came as a bit of a surprise. Then we ran the first World Brain Day in 2014, just raising awareness of brain health and all sort of the matters around that, good food, the rest of the other things, blood pressure, so on and so forth. Then, to our surprise, it was embraced by global community really rapidly. This year, we expect we would reach out to well over 100 million people. And over the last 3 years, since I was asked to chair this globally, we changed it with the support of other global leaders to run the campaign over a couple of months rather than just on the day where World Federation of Neurology was born. And we also now partner with another global organization. This year theme is multiple sclerosis, neuroinflammation, if you like. And we partnered with the Multiple Sclerosis International Federation, which is another global advocacy body. As a clinician scientist and an ardent advocate for health globally, as a laureate professor in global health also, and Pro Vice-Chancellor at one of the G8 universities in Australia. How excited are you to see that global organizations are taking advocacy seriously and reaching out to common men and common women worldwide to raise awareness?
Well, look, I think it's incredibly important. The diseases, the neurodegenerative and other diseases, the inflammatory brain diseases and many others, these chronic problems are awfully a huge burden of illness for the world, clearly affect patients and their families and the community in very significant ways, have huge economic burdens as well. And everything we can do to understand, to support people with these diseases, to learn more about them, and obviously look for new ways to cure these problems. All of this really matters for the global community. And, you know, many people are very concerned about these diseases, as they should be, because of their devastating consequences in many cases. And it's exciting. There are advances in these fields. And I think that's the really key point. There's real hope for a number of these very serious problems. And I'm very excited to see this. And I very much hope there'll be more support for research and more work being done in these areas going forward, because that's what we need. Science is the way to solve these problems. And I think science will actually solve many of them in the coming decades. At least I hope so.
I totally agree. And this is my invitation to Professor Talley's fan club. He is also the editor-in-chief for our own journal, Medical Journal Australia, which is the highest impact factor medical journal in Australasia. That would be correct to say, Nick?
Yes, it's done very well in this fashion, and it's a very good journal, and it's going from strength to strength. I'm very proud to be the editor-in-chief.
Absolutely, and the MJ Insight Plus also equally popular, and I invite both readers of MJA and MJA Insight Plus to drop into World Federation website, click on the World Brain Day, the icon, and download the toolbox that we have created just for you. You can use our press brief, you can use our slide deck, you can use all the images and messages that we created for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the social media channel that you know of. I know Prof. Talley is very active on social media, and he has a huge fan club, and I'm counting their support to have a massive World Brain Day campaign this year. Nick, that actually remind me to ask a couple of questions on journal. The journal is very popular. The rejection rate is high, but we both tasted rejection, continue to taste rejection even now. That's part and parcel of the game. Are you happy to talk about journal and what you look for, the submissions in particular?
Yeah, so look, obviously the MJA is a general medical journal. We're looking for submissions that would be in any part of medicine, any aspect of medicine. So they're very welcome. We are looking, when it's a research submission, we're looking for high quality research. We want it methodologically very sound. It really helps if the research is novel and important and might change practice or policy. That's not required. It just helps to support a paper if that's the case. But we want quality research. And we very carefully assess the methodology of research papers and weigh up their quality and their impact as we're trying to make a decision. But we also publish review articles, meta-analyses, perspectives. We're looking in perspectives for opinions, evidence-based opinions, evidence-based commentary, but they're often very impactful actually in terms of policy impact and even clinical practice impact. So worthwhile. Our editorials are generally invited, occasionally not, but generally invited. And we also publish letters to the editor, of course, and welcome those. So we're a general medical journal. We have a very rigorous process of assessment. We rely on peer review and our wonderful peer reviewers who support the journal. And we, as I say, we welcome submissions from anywhere in the world, actually, relevant to medicine, of high quality. And we thank all our authors who've published with us, who've worked with us. We work hard to improve their papers as part of our process.
And I echo the recommendation that the MJ publish work, good high quality work from any part of the world. I have certainly read good work coming from the different parts of Asia and different parts of Americas and different parts of Africa also from time to time. So for the global audience, keep thinking of Medical Journal Australia, despite it is harder to publish there and its impact is huge. Certainly for Australian authors, I totally agree that if you publish a perspective with really high quality evidence-based, it gets picked up by national media almost immediately. And you get very high visibility.
Yeah, we work hard to work with authors and promote their work as much as we can. And you're right, there's media impact, media pickup, often great interest for certain papers in the media, as there should be, because it's, it's important information that people should know about. And, as I said, we work very hard to make people's papers stronger and better than they would necessarily have been otherwise. That's our part of our job.
Nick, different question now. Outside academic life and outside editing work and outside research and medicine, how do you maintain work-life balance? What do you do for joy other than the subject matter, which itself is a sheer joy, of course?
Well, of course, I work. I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I recognize that, but I do try very hard to have some balance. Obviously, I have a lovely family at home, and I see them as much as I can. I love to read, and so I enjoy reading novels. I enjoyed reading historical novels as well, particularly, and I like reading history. Actually, I'm very interested in the history of the world, and find that fascinating, and the lessons there remarkably relevant to the modern world as well. But I also play sport. I love sport, and I watch a little bit of sport on television when I can, and I also play a number of sports because I've always believed you need to keep your body fit to keep your mind reasonably fit too. And so it's helped me there. It's a great stress reducer too to go and do something like that.
Absolutely. My last question, Nick, what do you want to say to the folks out there, specifically young generation, wherever they are, whether they are in Americas, Africa, or the Asia-Oceania region, or Europe?
Well, look, I think for everyone who is studying medicine or is a junior doctor or a junior medical or health researcher going forward, I'd like to say You're incredibly important people, every single one of you. You really matter. You'll make a huge difference to your communities and to everybody with the work that you're doing. If you have any interest in research, please pursue it. Research is so exciting, and marrying clinical observations, clinical work with research is a wonderful way to make progress actually in science and medicine. So please think about that as you're going forward, and best of luck with that. And my one hint for the success in research is to find a good mentor. Find a good mentor and work with them. That's one of the keys.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you also for your terrific work that is highly translational and beneficial for the global community and the healthy the nations worldwide. Stay safe and stay well, and keep up the good work. And we look forward to seeing you face to face one of these days once we survive this pandemic.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Take care. Stay safe.